So today I want to bring awareness to birth trauma, and the reason I want to do this is because I didn't even know that birth trauma was a thing until I started to do research on my own labor and delivery experience. Since my diagnosis of PTSD back in either 2014 or 2015, sometime shortly after my mother passed away, I've been spending my life trying to understand myself better and work through my trauma and work through my triggers, and it's been a wonderful and terrible experience, to say the least. So what brought me to this conclusion is about 7 to 10 days after I gave birth, I started to have PTSD symptoms. My PTSD shows up in flashbacks and nightmares and a lot of sensory issues. So I started to experience this in relation to my labor and delivery. I was thinking to myself, I literally feel like I'm traumatized by my birth, by my experience. I pretty much felt like I was in denial about this experience because the whole reason I had a at-home birth with no medical intervention unless absolutely necessary was to avoid the possibility of having birth trauma. All the stories that I've heard, literally every single one where a woman says, I think I had a traumatizing birth, came from medical intervention that did not go as planned or unnecessary. So I have a completely natural at-home labor. It went perfect per my midwife and my doula. They said I did a great job. It was a fast labor. My baby scored a 10 on his APGAR. He's perfect to this day. It's, no medical intervention necessary really, but I still felt traumatized, but I'm still having symptoms of my PTSD. This is what led me to do a little more research on myself, on my experience, and I stumbled across birth trauma. Since I'm aware of my PTSD and how it shows up in my life, I was able to pretty much catch it before it caused me to really spiral, and started sharing with my husband about it, and even talked to my midwife about it afterwards. So once I did some research, I found that because I already have a history of mental health and trauma and PTSD, it really made me more at risk for processing my birth as traumatizing. Thinking back now, the part that I noticed was the sense of loss of control. From my basic understanding of myself and trauma, I realized that loss of control is probably what caused my brain to process this labor and this delivery as traumatic. Even now, I still suffer from the lingering effects of it because it makes me very anxious to think that I have to do that again. The nightmares and the flashbacks, or watching the videos or looking at the pictures, or it's like fear and anxiety and just like, what the happened to me? Like, that's what goes on in my head. So I was nursing Van, and I started to have the regular cramps that you have while you're nursing, and they were so bad at this point that I went into almost a full-blown panic attack. And all I kept thinking and saying was, I can't go through this again, I can't go through this again, I can't go through this again. The cramps were reminders of the contractions. And if you've had that, that's what they feel like. And it was just too much. It was just the peak of my PTSD. And what made me realize that I have to do something about this. Having PTSD after my labor caused me to be very unhappy and very anxious. I definitely have postpartum anxiety, and I still have that to this day. It caused me to be more emotional than I think was normal. Rage towards my husband, and just the feeling of I can't do this. I definitely feel like I can't talk about this to a lot of people. People maybe don't understand. It makes me the most nervous because I do want to have more children, and will this be something that I go through every time? Even though I'm working through it and I'm even making this video to bring awareness about it, I still have that fear deep down inside, and that's where I struggle the most, and why I decided to do some more research on this topic to better understand myself and to be able to help myself. And if you guys are still listening, please consider sharing this video to someone who might be able to relate or would find it interesting. I would really like to get the conversation started on this topic, and also consider checking out my other videos. If you like what you hear here, please consider subscribing to my channel. Keep an eye out for more content.